This evening is an event celebrating the Texas Constitution and also Texas diversity. First of all, I want the students to have an opportunity to enjoy themselves. I want them to be able to benefit from being able to listen to some good speakers, to learn from each other, and also learn something about the development of the Texas Constitution, our first Constitution as a republic, the one that was devised in 1836. I think that we really will, and the students will learn, and we all will benefit from taking the pleasure of seeing and understanding that what makes Texas unique and what indeed has brought us here today is that Texas is really a work in progress that has been produced by many different peoples.
Hello, ACC students. It's good to be back here. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the role of women in the Texas Revolution. Overall, the Texas Revolution had a profound effect on all Texas women. They were at the center of the conflict and contributed to the Texan victory in 1836. Despite their active roles and assistance in overthrowing an autocratic regime, the revolution did not significantly improve their lives or status. Afterwards, women continued in their traditional roles, tending to the day-to-day welfare of their families within the confines of a domestic sphere. Further, the implementation of English common law by the Republic represented a loss of women's rights previously held under the Spanish legal system. In short, Texas women helped secure independence, but their revolutionary future, socially, legally, and economically, was far from revolutionary. Thank you.
The significance of the history of the African American in Texas history is a lot of it is not even documented, and most of the stories are told from part stories or people that were there that actually saw what happened. So the role of the Black soldier is one of bravery, one of coming over the circumstances that they had to go through. They fought to protect a country that in the end didn't end up protecting them. So as we look through our Texas history, we have to be very proud of the fact that everyone of color participated. And so today we're Texans. Thank you.
They are now beginning to limit, this is the Mexican government, they limit the migration of United States citizens to Mexico. And as a matter of fact, they make it illegal. They say that from now on, Mexico will not accept immigrants from the northern part or from the United States. So migration now is something that is illegal as all hell. Mexicans, again, cannot control it, and the Americans will continue to move into Mexican territory, specifically Texas, because that was a place where they had at least some kind of body, some kind of population that would be like them. They will continue to come across, even though they were forbidden to. They came across from Louisiana and Indian Territory into the Republic of Mexico. So many of your families here, like Mr. Peck Young, are families that have their roots to this migrating group that came at that time. And the only thing that I would like to say about this is that for most of you, even those of you who, you have to understand that the first wetbacks into Texas came from the north, across Red River and the Sabine. So if by any chance any of you have descendants of those people that came in, you could call yourself a descendant from northern wetbacks into the structure. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me give a warm welcome to our good friend, Senator Gonzalo Barrientos.
Thank you, Alejandro. Distinguished board members of the Austin Community College, professors, instructors, teachers, God bless you for what you do, and students. In Bastrop, when I was in the first grade, there were 3 schools. One for whites, one for blacks, and one for Mexicans. Not from Mexico, us, right here, Americans. And it was kind of tough because the second part of the first grade, there was a lawsuit called Delgado versus Bastrop, where the Mexican-American children were integrated into the schools. So when I'd come home, there'd be a few white kids who were really great, beautiful folks. And then there were a few little Johnny rednecks who said, Mexican, greaser, pepper belly, wetback, go home. So I'd come home sometimes, and I'd tell my grandpa. My grandpa would say, no los culpes a ellos, sino al corral donde se criaron. Do not blame them. Rather blame the corral in which they grew up. Think about the independence that we have. What is it? You don't answer to someone else. You determine your own schedule, values, priorities. You stand alone. Not being a victim anymore. Not having to ask permission to live your life. Making your own decisions. Financial independence. Freedom of religion. But then again, dependent. Are we? Well, we're dependent on clean air, clean water, food. We're dependent on the workers who plant the food and fruits and herd the cattle. Is independence an illusion? And yet we think back. Even, I think it was last year, some small group of men said that Texans who came over here were to defy a tyrant. It said these men did not gather for a material gain, nor to impose their will on others. Yeah, right. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. I celebrate that we are here today to celebrate Texas Independence Day. I don't know where you would be or where I would be if in the 1830s those things would not have happened. But alas, we are not perfect. All those things that we can think of, manifest destiny, wounded knee, slavery, racism, Vietnam, Iraq, death, the worst forms of violence. So on this Independence Day, our challenge, I say to you, is being ourselves, be independent.
What we've done is we've broken up the groups into looking at the various aspects of government. We've got a couple of groups looking at the legislature, the most detailed aspect, how we're going to break down what the legislature is going to do. We've got another couple of groups looking at the Bill of Rights. What will your Bill of Rights look like? What should it look like? What's the language specifically? Then we've got another group looking at the executive. What's this executive going to be? What kind of powers will they or will they not have? And then we've got another group looking at the judiciary to try and set the framework for what role in this new system will the judiciary have. Individuals can make a difference. Being part of a process does matter, and the details that are in documents that they have to study for tests are actually the words and the ideas behind the rights that they do have. The rights that say they can come to an event like this and they can talk openly and publicly and they can express themselves and do so without fear. That's remarkable in world history, and it's remarkable around the world today. And the most dynamic thing about this entire night is just how seriously they take it and how much they get into it, and then sitting back and waiting for their reports where they can tell us how they've weighed in, how they perceive, what they think we should be doing. ACC students rock. They impress me and amaze me every single time, and I just sit back and learn from them.
Let me have your attention. we're going to start the legislature. The legislature has been divided into two parts, and we will start with Part A, and I need a spokesperson to come up to the microphone. All right, our spokesperson. Look at me, so I can, all right. Introduce yourself to your fellow students.
Yes. Okay.
Go right ahead.
Hello, my name is Kylie Jackson.
Yeah. All right, Kylie. The first question that we need to have answered is, what did your group decide would be the name of the legislative body?
We never really came up with a name, so it's the legislative body.
How many houses?
We decided on two houses, an upper house and a lower house. The lower house makes the laws, and the upper house's job is to check the lower house, and basically they yay or nay the laws. So basically not to give all of the power to one house, and to make things more equal and have a more fair representation.
Very good. And why did you guys decide to do that?
To have a fair representation, and we discussed many other things.
So the lower house, or the lower chamber is to serve as a check on the upper chamber?
It's the opposite. The lower house makes and writes the laws, and the upper house is a check on the lower house. Yes.
Are they both elected in the same manner?
Yes, they are both elected. Yes.
How are they elected?
Well, as far as numbers and elections, we had a lot of arguments on that, and that was a long discussion. But we decided on, they're both elected. The lower house is based on population, and the upper house was a set number, but they're both elected. The reason being, it's more equal, and we felt like that gave us more of a fair representation, so that there isn't more power given to one house over the other house. Because if one was appointed, then that would give them more power. Like, we thought about appointing the upper house, but if the upper house is appointed and they're also checking the lower house as far as the laws go, then they have a lot more power than the lower house does. So basically they're deciding what laws we have, and we wanted it to be more equal.
What is the term of office in each chamber?
Let's see. We decided on 4 years for the lower house and 6 years for the upper house. There was also a lot of debate about that. 4 years, we decided on 4 years for the lower house because we wanted fresh faces in the lower house because they're making and writing the laws. And we felt that if it was 6 years for them, that is a long time to have the same members of the House, and they're making and writing our laws and deciding what the laws are going to be. And the upper house, and so their only job is to yea or nay the laws and basically check the lower house. We felt that they could have a longer term in the office. Now there is debate because every 12 years the elections are going to coincide, and that is not a good thing, but
That isn't?
it still happens.
Why isn't it a good thing?
I don't know, because that wasn't my opinion.
Good for you. And on that note, thank you very much. You did an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Grab a seat. That was great. Great. Thank you. That was super. So we learned several things. We learned that we now have a constitution that has a legislature, and the legislature will be called the legislature. But we are now moving on to Part B of the legislature, and we have other matters that need to be considered. So where is the spokesperson for our continued discussion of our legislature? And would you introduce yourself?
I'm Andrew Spike.
Andrew, welcome.
Anders.
Anders. Sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Sounds great. You're eager and ready. Will you be levying and collecting taxes with the legislature?
Yes, sir, we will.
And what about various excise or tonnage duties, imports and exports?
Yes, sir. And the reason is that this and several of the following points to try to concise our debates on the topic are that the first point where we levy and collect taxes kind of starts the control of the financial process with the legislature, which is the part of government which, one, is most decentralized, both over, in this case, 2 houses, as the Group A demonstrated, and also the most people. So it's most tied to the will of the people of the country, and therefore the most democratic aspect of the republic system. And when you're centralizing the control in the federal level instead of at a state level, as you know, we have
I am
60
glad that
states.
Anders prepared a speech. This is very good. But to move it along, let me ask you some specific questions.
Yes, sir.
First of all, are you going to coin money?
Yes, we are.
Do you see this state as a nation? Is it a nation, or is it part of a larger nation? Is it a state?
It will be one nation divided into 16 states.
So we have 16 states. And will the states be authorized under the Constitution to be able to develop their own coinage and produce their own currency, so each state could have their own currency?
No, that will be in the hands of the federal legislature.
That would be exclusive to the federal legislature.
Correct.
So the federal legislature, as you see it, would be supreme.
In terms of the coinage of finances, yes.
What about with respect to trade? What about tariffs? Could the states develop their own independent foreign policy with other nations?
No.
So in that regard, the federal government created in this fantasy country would be supreme.
Correct.
All right. Who's responsible for passing judgment if there is a dispute on an election to the legislature?
As in one of the members of the legislature?
Yes.
The decision would be made by the House where the dispute was taking place.
What about if there were a dispute concerning rules in the legislature?
Could you specify?
Sure. Would the legislature have the power to create its own rules for procedures? For example, there's nothing in the Constitution that talks about committees. Could the legislature create rules to establish committees?
Yes, if it aids in the accomplishment of the duties that are provided within the Constitution.
So I want you to think about this. If it doesn't have the authority to make those kinds of rules, there is no real guidance as to how the legislature will go about performing its main function, which is to make laws. So presumably, maybe by implication, it has that authority. You did a super job. I really admire the thought you put into it. And I'm sorry I interrupted your speech, but I have a feeling that in the future, we'll be hearing speeches and voting for this man. Anders, the man. Well done. All right, let's move on. We are not done at all. We're just warming up. Whoever could ever imagine that making a constitution would be so much fun? All right, where are we? We are at the executive. Where is the executive?
I'm very nervous, but I'll get used
All right, introduce yourself.
to it. My name is John. Hello.
All right, John.
And that's
John.
That's pretty much all you need to know.
John, the only John who would ever do anything like that is, the great John Lennon, but that's all right.
All right.
All right.
Those are high stakes.
All right. Go. All right, what is the name of the Supreme Judicial Authority?
A very original thought. President.
The President will be the name of the executive. Okay, the President has a ring to it.
We decided that he should be elected by popular vote. There was a bit of about it, but then the majority vote, and we have a really small group, decided to go by popular vote.
And what exactly does that mean?
That means I'm pretty sure it's like every single count in said state.
Do you envision political parties in your elections?
Yes.
Really? Is there anything in the Constitution that you have devised that has any comments or commentary or authorization for political parties?
I don't remember, guys. Help me out.
Is there any mention of political parties in the Constitution of the United States?
No.
None.
Keep on going?
Yes, indeed. You're doing
All
fine.
right. Well, number 3, we decided the terms would be of 6 years.
6 years.
Yes.
And what would be the eligibility requirements?
You're making me go down real quick. We decided to go with 35 years of age.
35.
And then that they would have to be a naturalized citizen with being here at least 10 years.
All right. Now we're going to the judicial branch. And where is our... Thank you, John. Come on up.
So we called it the Supreme Judiciary Council.
The Supreme Judiciary Council. Is that the Supreme Judiciary Council of the Intergalactic Association?
Of course.
Of course. I like that name, Supreme Judiciary Council.
I like it too.
Straight out of Star Trek. Very good. I love it. Supreme Judiciary Council. How many justices?
We decided with 7.
7. Any particular reason?
Yeah, we wanted to give a plethora of ideas, so we would have a fair and balanced
Of
system.
what of ideas?
Just a fair and balanced set of ideas, so we have, not just a few individuals, but we have, a larger round of people, so we have more balanced.
Fair and balanced?
decision. Absolutely.
Yes, quote in quotes, fair and balanced?
Absolutely.
Yes. I mean, I'm glad we have an ad for Fox News. That was good, fair and balanced. Good. How should the judges for the Supreme Judicial Authority be selected?
So we decided with the chief executive and the consent of the legislative body.
So basically, we're doing it very much like the United States does.
Yeah. It's worked so well, I guess.
What would be the term of office?
I'm sorry?
What would be the term of office for the judges?
The term of office, 6 years.
Why?
So I initially wanted to go with 8 to life, but we considered 6 because we liked the idea that we could always have a different set of people coming in rather opposed to having life.
Okay, so they would change every 6 years.
Well, they don't have to change. They can be reelected.
By whom?
By, oh, sorry, no. Is it just for 6 years, just like they can't be reelected?
Okay, so there's a 6-year term, and then they have to leave.
Oh, okay. Then yes, 6 years and then they leave.
What about the argument that probably by the time they've been on the bench for 6 years, they have finally learned how to do their job, and once they've figured out how to do their job, we're telling them that it's time to leave? Was that a problem?
I guess it does create a future problem.
Pardon?
I guess it does create a future problem.
It may. It
It
but
may.
I like the way you guys thought about it. Shall the Supreme Judicial Authority have the authority to rule on the constitutionality of the acts of the legislature or the executive?
Yes, I believe so. They should.
Why?
Because they're supposed to uphold the Constitution. If they don't, I mean, then who does?
Does it say that anywhere?
I mean, yeah, I believe so.
Where? You look for it, and when you find it, tell us. But I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
So tell us what you would include in the Bill of Rights. And let's start here.
Yeah, we have
just have one speaker?
I'll be the speaker.
If you wanted to speak. Do you want to speak?
All three of us. Well, he started.
Okay, that's cool. You've got it all worked out?
Yeah.
So tell me, get in line in the order that you want to speak.
Yeah, we're down here. Right here. We don't do your job. 1, 2, 3.
Knock yourself out. Go for it. Go for it.
Say your name.
Begin.
Alrighty.
Begin.
I said the last two.
Hello, y'all. I'm Cecily. Thank you. So, one of the biggest things we want to do is free college to everyone. So, yeah, free college. Wait, did we talk about?
You said the what?
But there is regulations for it. There is a 2.0 minimum entry. Unfortunately, for the University of Laconda, there is no free parking. And there is drug testing, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So the Bill of Rights is going to impose restrictions on your liberty by guaranteeing that there will be mandatory drug testing.
Yep.
Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Mandatory drug testing. All right, what's next? I didn't make it sound negative. You just said it. I mean, drug testing.
13.
All right.
Yeah.
And yes, indeed.
We will provide tiny homes, villages with resources for homeless people. This will also include assistance for them until they get back into their feet. They will pay back with our community service. And
She'll do the next one.
our president here.
Good.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Next.
So as you said, the tiny homes for the homeless is basically in Austin, we have a lot of homeless people out on the streets. And if we can kind of not get rid of them, but get them stabilized where they're not homeless anymore, we can bring more tourists to the area. And how we're able to do this, we build these tiny homes where they have resources to teach them how to get back on their feet, maybe education, get them a clothing kind of drive to get to dress for success. Dress for the job you want, but not for the job that you have. And how we're supposed to pay for this is through this new thing that we're going to pass, which is legalizing marijuana. I mean, really? Okay. There you go.
Medically.
That wasn't my one.
Like a democracy, not all of us agreed, but it was passed. Okay, so the only financial requirement for anyone who wants to adopt a child is that they need to have $5,000 in their bank account, and they need to be able to have a stable income, and then also pass all of the background checks and all the requirements that are right now. So we talked about the Second Amendment, which is like big here, right? So we wanted to have an age requirement to become a licensed gun holder, and we chose 25. Again, democracy. So only licensed gun holders may conceal in public schools. No other guns are allowed in schools. We want more effective public transportation because that'd probably help with the traffic that we experience on I-35. And then affordable health care. It doesn't have to be free because, as y'all can tell, we are trying to get the homeless stable and on their feet. We just want to make sure everyone has some type of health care so we don't all get sick because some people are spreading something that they wouldn't have if they had that.
My only question,
is the affordable housing. Who's going to pay for your education, your free education? The legislature. The legislature, you guys, and then you are going to impose huge taxes. Okay. And who's going to pay the taxes?
I can just do it if you want.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I can do it.
I got it.
No, it's because I can't see.
All right. Are you ready? I love your ideas. Yes. You may proceed.
Okay. I'm going to go now. Okay. My name's Komal, and we did Bill of Rights Part B. So we kept the 13th Amendment the same, but for the 14th Amendment, we changed that every citizen, you have to be 21 and without a criminal history to have the right to bear arms, to get a gun. And then everything else the same except, okay, we changed 19. All who can work shall have the right to a livable minimum wage with reasonable hours, because before it was useful, but you can't really say what useful is because, you know, my job wants to pay me like trash money, but I need a lot of money. And then we changed 21. Before it was every citizen shall have the right to decent housing, but we changed it to every citizen shall have access to affordable housing.
And that is an important distinction that you made and this group made as well.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And then we changed 22. Everyone shall have access to free universal health care. I don't agree with that. I thought there should be an age limit, like after 25, you gotta start paying. Because, you know, you should like start using hand sanitizer after you get to that age. And then 25, we changed it. Everyone shall have the right to have guaranteed protection from the negative effects of the environment. And we add that that would be like man-made and natural effects of like the environment. Because it's not fair that I have to breathe disgusting air. Because of some people.
I think with that, it's time to move on to something less disgusting. And I'm going to thank both of you guys for your time.
Before we go, one thing I want to say to you all, just a sec. I want you to look around this room tonight. I want you to look at the energy. This country, we are not modeling the best of America right now, but we are in this room. This is precisely what this nation needs, is this type of energy. And we need each and every one of you to do what you're doing right now, which is speak. Speak. You have the unbelievable right to speak without fear in this country. You have that right. You have that responsibility. Speak. And before you open your mouth, do what you've done tonight, which is educate yourself so that when you do open your mouth, you can speak. And when you hear somebody say something that you don't like or you disagree with or is just downright ignorant, speak. And don't give anybody your money if you don't like what they're doing. Speak with your pocketbook and let them know you're not giving them their money and get other people to not give them their money. Speak. And the most important way you can speak is in the ballot box with your vote. How do I know this? Because they're trying to take your vote away from you. Do you understand how much power you have? Barack Obama got 10% of people under 25 to vote, the most in American history. 10%! 78% of all white men vote. What do you think would happen if 25% of y'all voted? 50%, 75%. Speak. Speak with your vote. Speak with your pocketbook. Speak with your voices. Go get some cupcakes. You guys rock.